Hi, my name is Vanessa, and I'm on a 2-year journey of finishing a literary horror novel draft. Here's the thing, we're on week 3. I'm documenting every single week up until week 8,000, and we'll see where we get by the end. So we're on week 3. Things have changed, but not changed at all. Going back to introduce myself, I'm a writer. I've been a writer for 10 years, mostly in TV and entertainment. I've written for shows like How to Get Away with Murder, The Sandman, Fate the Winx. I've developed animes before with Crunchyroll, and now I'm doing this because this industry is horrible, but it gives me time to work on this. So that's that. I'm gonna just keep burning through that. So this is week 3, and I decided to structure these videos with start off with the personal struggles and then get into the craft struggles. This week, the personal struggles are about to take up a lot because I had a lot of insights this week compared to before. My novel is a literary horror novel where we're following a monster who is dying. This monster is made up of human parts that it collects and eats, and it's going through the memories of the last person that it ate to figure out why the fuck am I suddenly dying. And as it goes through the memories of the last person that it ate, it's becoming more sentient, it's becoming more empathetic to humanity, and suddenly it realizes, I want to have a life too. Why can't I do something? So it's like a double narrative of we go back into the memories and we see this person trying to escape this world and get captured, and then the monster trying to figure out clues, why am I dying, but also, wait, being a human kind of eats, and I empathize, and wait, I want to do that. So those are the 2 tracks of the story. I'm getting so good at speeding through this shit. Maybe I shouldn't speed through. You shouldn't speed through. It's just, the thought that the 2, I've always been really bad at elevator pitches and log lines, and I realize that that's just an excuse. It's a skill like anything else, and I'm a very long-winded person because I never know. I'm like, okay, but you need to know this detail because it's really cool, and it's like, no, they don't. Also, they don't care. So imagine it gets longer and longer, and then it's just like, okay, I didn't learn anything. So we'll see. But that's why I'm gonna keep saying it, because the elevator pitch is the thing, and I'm not great at it. By the way, the program that I'm doing this 2-year journey with is called the Book Project under Lighthouse. It is a 2-year journey, which is, I just picked this number out of my, it's a 2-year journey. The whole goal is to get you to a draft of a manuscript, or as close as to a draft of a manuscript as possible. I'm learning that some people are taking, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and that is their journey. I don't know where I'm at, but we're gonna try to finish this draft in 2 years. By the way, we figured out a schedule. So I think I mentioned it in week 2, or maybe week 1, but there's this class in Lighthouse that's kind of like a part accountability club, part writing, part workshopping, 8-week course, and it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, writing from 8 a.m. my time to 12 p.m. my time. So 4 hours, 3 days a week, dedicated time. Boom, we're on it. We got 8 weeks. We're gonna set up this year with a real schedule. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. And then I think in between then, we'll make room for the screenwriting, we'll make room for the paid jobs, all of that. When you're not working consistently, you better come up with some kind of schedule. I prefer to be up till 4 o'clock in the morning, but then I also want to go to the gym. I also want to take meetings. It wasn't working. So I've become a morning person by default, but not like this. This 8 o'clock means getting up at 7. So I don't know how I'm going to do this, but it's necessary, and we're going to do it. At the end of this 8 weeks, we're going to have some stuff done. So schedule wise, we got a schedule for the next 8 weeks. That gives us days and times to do other things, like record, write other things, any jobs that come up, take any meetings, and we'll see where this goes. So it's not the schedule part that is the major thing. Right now it's the personal. So going back to the personal. For the past 2 weeks, I've basically been talking about the same kind of personal struggles, which is the whole feeling like this is a waste of time and struggling to contend with what's happening in America and my place in what's happening in America with, okay, you're writing this, it's a, okay, you know what I mean? That's it does it feel worth it? Compared to what is going on, and feeling like it's frivolous and stupid. That's literally been the theme. Like every time I sit down and I'm like, what did I go through personally this week? It's been this over and over and over again. So this week I kind of reflected on it because I'm just like, for now, it's giving, this is it. Like, this is going to be the major personal struggle. Yes, we're still dealing with the whole outside problem and, schedule problem. But for the most part, it's this personal does this make sense? I realized that the major problem I've been having is the separation of my place in the world and the advocacy that I like to be a part of. Because I've been kind of fragmenting my life as I figure out what the fuck I have going on. I push that stuff to the side a little bit to figure out how to carve out space for this. And I think that was necessary, but it's not helpful. It's not helpful. And it's because I can't separate the two. The advocacy work, the figuring out my place, the developing my politic, the being in community, cannot be separated from the art anymore. I was looking at it as a pie chart, with these two things as separate, and I think unfortunately they need to become the same thing. That is how we complete this project. Once you get to this place where we're at in this country, what I've learned over the past few years from people that I admire online, here in the community, people doing the work, like once you get to a certain point, is everything is political. Everything is political, and there's no compartmentalizing things anymore. And this is my first for me project, and I'm seeing that while I was able to semi compartmentalize for the industry stuff, there's no way I can compartmentalize for this project. It will not get done. Point blank period. It's not going to get done. I don't feel good. I don't like it. And I have some thoughts on that. So I'm going to be referencing, I think for the next few weeks, I'm going to be referencing a book and a few people. This week I'm referencing Ismatu Gwendolyn. Go right now and follow her. You don't got to finish the video. I actually don't care, but no, I do care. Please do. But follow her. She's been someone that's kind of been not a North Star, but in my legion of guiding posts, and people that have helped me retrain and reframe my mind as I've gotten older and more developed in what I believe in and what I want to do. She's one of like my tent poles. So shout out to her in reference to this. I'm looking at her work on being an artist, what that means, the oftentimes false and fake equivalents to art, especially like Black artists and revolutionaries, but also how that can mix and merge. And the phrase that I'm taking from her a lot, which I think she's also referencing this book that I'll tell you about in a second, is world making. And that art is inherently world making. You have to conceive of the world to make the world. And it's kind of like a blueprint. I don't want to completely act like not that I don't know what she's saying, but I need to study a little bit more so I can condense it so I can actually say it to you before I say it. But that's kind of the general gist of what I'm working with this week and kind of like where my mind is at as we move forward. We're not just talking about, like, remember last week we were talking about Tony K. Bambara's quote about the role of the artist is to make revolution irresistible. This to me becomes a funnel into that line of thinking, which is we are artists, we are world makers. And the way to the next step of change and revolution and imagining a new world is you need to be able to have someone to do that imagination and show what's possible. Because maybe in the future, because of these stories, someone will be able to achieve the thing. So world makers, and that's what I'm looking at myself as now. As someone that acknowledges that I cannot separate the political from the art, I have to look at my art as political, which means we're looking at this not as just writing, but as world making. So writing as a career, it's great, sure. But writing as a career has helped or taught me to compartmentalize. And I didn't realize how much I was compartmentalizing until this week in doing some evaluations, because I've always been in the writer's room and I've always felt like my mission is not just to I write TV. The mission is to be someone in the writer's room that can persuade, mostly persuade and educate the people that have power into putting in stories that are representative, that present alternative ideals, that I'm trying to imbue Black thought into TV shows. I'm trying to put that in. I'm trying to persuade. I feel like half of my job is to persuade. It's to persuade. Add queerness. Add this. Yes, it's important to have Black trans kids in this story. Yes, the Black character has to have her own story. Yes, we need to be able to imagine Black girls and have someone in love with them. Yes, that has been my role in the writer's room. It is to persuade. But I didn't realize, so I thought that I've been very free and like my political and my art is already won. Like I don't have to, no, I'm still heavily compartmentalizing because I can only do so much and I know my limits. And even in addition to like compartmentalizing because I'm in a room and I don't control what the decisions are made ultimately, and this is the network and the studio, and like there's like so much that only gives me so much. You also have to be able to take calls. And so I remember when it was the January 6th riots, we were in a room, we were still working, and I remember saying like, yo, like we need to stop. Like we have to stop. Like let's look at the news. We came back from lunch. I saw what was going on in the White House. Like what the fuck was happening? Coming back into the room, and I was like, yo, like I'm not working anymore. This is crazy. This is crazy. This is crazy. So I'm very aware of the weird cognitive dissonance sometimes it takes to be a professional. I only tolerate so much, but what I have been tolerating has obviously affected me. So even though I'm good at stuff like that, I still have to take calls. I still have to like come to these meetings, and I still have during all like of everything. And like, you know, I remember during the Palestine, like especially when we were out protesting for Palestine, having to still come onto these Zoom meetings with, you know, network executives and all this, not but like production house executives, and trying to both persuade and inform what I'm doing, but without completely dismantling my ability to be a professional and have a job. You know what I mean? So I've still been practicing the art of compartmentalization, and it's just more saturated than I thought. I think what it's looked like, the insidious way that normalcy, compartmentalization, and operating under capitalism has affected my work in a way that I didn't realize it affected my work, is my day-to-day emotions. I'm gonna reference this book now, but there's this book that Ismatu actually put me on, not me, but put her audience, aka me, onto. It's this book. It's called How to Go Mad Without Losing Your Mind, and then the small thing is Madness and Black Radical Creativity. She began like a lecture writing series on it, and it really resonated with me. Using the term madness, which Lamar Jarrell Bruce, we'll just use the last name Bruce, he breaks down madness, or they break down madness as a place. He says madness is a lived reality that demands sustained attention. So he's using those models to kind of evaluate Black art, Black artists, and how we operate in this country to make world making. But basically, madness is a state of being that you get to, and through that, we world make. I feel like, from what I read of Ismatu's work on this, madness, to get to a place of forward thinking, accepting what comes with revolution, you have to get to a place of madness. You are understanding what must be done to society, feeling how society has impacted and harmed you, witnessing how society is violent and harmed and impact you, realizing what must be given up to move towards the future, realizing what must be done to have a brighter future, rejecting the status quo. Madness. Now I understand that the only way to survive what is here and what's to come is to be mad. To think, to dream, and to world make, I have to be mad, because I have to reject the status quo. I have to be able to accept what must be forgotten, unlearn, witness the violence, feel the violence. I have to be in this place of madness. I've known this inherently, and I think a lot of people, Black people especially, know it. but I think I've tampered it down because I know that if I fully feel the emotions, it goes back to compartmentalizing, even though I've thought that I've just been this like, yeah, fuck it, it's kind of almost been a bit of an act where I know when to pull the curtains. And in order to pull the curtains, I can't let myself feel and think a certain way, because if I go over, like, that's where I'm at now. If I go over a certain line, I'm fucked. Right now, as I've tried to keep myself grounded, as I've tried to mitigate the madness that I feel and the emotions that I feel, I fear I've blocked out my creative potential. I don't think that it can exist anymore without me feeling and thinking and going to a place of madness anymore. I have some thoughts on what that looks like, but it's just accepting that in order for me to be the world maker and the artist that I want, my life, my day-to-day life has to be steeped in madness. And I think previously, even in like the previous weeks, I've tried so hard to be like, well, I can push that stuff. I can push the madness and advocacy to the side for a little bit as my schedule, as it fits my schedule. It don't work because now I feel it so much that me pushing it down with scrolling, with more work, with whatever I'm using, when I actually sit down to write and I'm not writing for pay and it's just like, hey, world make, I can't do it because that's like the first time that I allow myself to sit and be vulnerable and to feel in order to tap into my creativity. That's when this shit comes out and it's like, nah, we're not doing this because we're pissed, because we're mad and we don't know what to do about it and we're not doing anything about it, so fuck this. That's where I think this feels fucking stupid thing that I said last week comes from. That was where that place was coming from. It wasn't just dismissiveness like that I kind of thought it was. It was the coming from a place of anger and madness and feeling upset that I felt like I had to push that stuff aside in order to be a writer. I have not really been able to sit down. I have been able to sit down and plot, but plot is not the same thing as the heart of what I'm trying to do with my story. And I think the reason why it's sometimes hard for me to articulate that is because what I'm pulling from is a place that I'm also trying to put a cap on. I'm both trying to like put a lid over the pot of madness and politics and trying to figure out what I'm living for in my vision statement, and then only open it up when it comes time to write something, or when it's like, okay, well now I have time to like go to the thing, and then put it back on. It's not working anymore. It's not working. So there's no way to sustain and move forward as a world maker, as a human, without going mad. And I have some thoughts on what that looks like and what that means. But for now, I'm accepting that the more that I hold myself back from this part of my life, the worse the more stunted that my worldview, my world making will be. And I will never be able to finish this book. That's just the truth. This book doesn't get finished without me going there. I don't think I've ever actually been mad enough where it bursts through my work. It comes out, it's impossible for it not, but it's vented a little bit. And it's vented because most of the work that I've done is for other people. It's going to be read by executives. It's going to be run by my manager. It's going to be read by, like, it's all me. It's me knowing that I have to filter a certain amount because it is not the intended audience. I have not written anything that is for my intended audience. So I write it for myself because I'm like, well, this is it. Like, I gotta be able to be cool with it because if I'm not, like, no one else that reads it is going to be, because it's inherently not for them. So because of that, I don't fully let myself connect the way that I need to connect. I don't know if I'm making any sense. So I have some potential how-tos, especially as I continue in these 2 years. I think the most important companion piece to writing this and world making is going to be to journal. I used to be a huge journaler. I kind of still do, like, ish, but I'd be like, I don't got a pen. So, to journal, to keep track and evaluate myself, my feelings, my emotions through written word. over and over and over again. It's so bad that when I journal sometimes, in my head, I'm not even subconsciously, I'm imagining like, well, when I die, my loved ones might get my journals, and what if they read this, and what if they see this? It's crazy that even in my personal private thoughts, I'm filtering and I'm compartmentalizing because I don't want people to see me go crazy and think these things. Or I think about, well, what if I get arrested and they go through my journals, and what if they see me saying exactly what I feel? So I think the first place is to having the safe space to let myself feel, go mad, say what the fuck that I need to say. And if I'm afraid to use words because of the very real violent threat of this country, figuring out a different alternative way, but to say it out loud and to read this and to evaluate it and evaluate myself and where I'm at with my emotions. Then the second thing I think for me personally is going to be reading this book. And I'm sure that there's other texts that look at this in different ways, but this is what I got now. It's resonated with me so far, and I think continuing to read this very slowly, like I said, it's something that I would have been able to breeze through in college, but I'm getting used to reading this level of writing, and getting used to working with it and critically thinking around this kind of writing. So taking my time, thinking of it as study time. I need study time. Just as I'm studying with reading other texts and novels, I need to study the art of world making given where I'm at right now. It's important, just as important to study this and all the authors and the world makers before me than it is to study the narrative and the craft. And then finally, giving actions and plans to the madness to better my world making. The journaling is helping me look and see and feel, and now I need to do something with that energy and enact action with it, so I can imagine a different world, so I can feel inspired, or I can see where things could go horribly wrong and where change could cause suffering and what that would look like. I need to take action. And I think for now that looks like, going back to that work once a month. Let's start with once a month. I didn't have it before. I think I have it a bit now. I don't think I have a choice but to have it a bit now. What is it? But I'm someone that is like, if you come to me and you're like, here's a thing, I'll take it. What do you want to do? What should we do? What should we do? I think where I need to change now is, what is that mission and vision for my life, and finding something in a cause that I can pour into so I feel deeply, deeply connected to it. I've felt deeply connected to all the other things that I've done before. Like previously, it's working with sex workers, Black and trans sex workers, and advocacy for their safety and well-being. And I think now I'm looking towards narrative sovereignty and working with kids to help them find a voice and a way to world make, so they don't lose the ability to envision and to write and to think of a better future. Something like that. I'm trying to figure it out, but making sure that I have dedicated time to take action on something is extremely important. Again, there's no separating. I need to see what it is to actually world make in real life. You know what I mean? Like, I need to see what that looks like and what change feels like and what it's like to work with other people and see things grow and see things die and see things being intercepted and all of these things to world make, at least the things that I want to world make. Those are my thoughts. Like I said, the personal this week was really heavy. This came from sitting down to write and work and try every day and just feeling like there's like a roadblock and just like hitting a wall. What the fuck is this wall coming from? That's where the week's 3's evaluation comes from. And now it's just I have to do it. The hows, the journaling, the reading, and the action, easier said than done. I think now we integrate it. So speaking of kind of my week this week, I wrote both inside and outside the house. I went to one of my favorite cafes. I kind of reworked my workspace, and most of this week was the the past 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, has been very inside. I've been sick and I just haven't really been in the mood. I have not been in the fucking mood to deal with, to be outside at all. So most of my vloggy stuff this week is just writing stuff. So here's that. Let's just hope we have good things to plan around, because my God. This YouTube series, I'll send you the first video. I'm looking at these houses, I'm like, wait, oh, it's a dog. Oh my God. So I took this body horror class, and it's really changing the aspect of what I'm doing. So I have two notebooks. This is kind of like for general classes, and this is specifically for the story. I don't know if you've ever experienced taking a class or getting a piece of information or inspiration that has changed the way that you look at your own story. So I need to write like 10 pages today, but I also don't know what I'm doing anymore. This week, craft-wise, I'm talking about non-linear storytelling, because the non-linearness feels like the smoke that I cannot see past. There's plots and anchor beats everywhere, and I don't know where the fuck I'm going. So that's kind of the major thing that I worked on this week. It was a bit easier to kind of go through like, and this is third person last week. This week's a little bit more of me just yapping about it, and some of the techniques that I've used this week and what I'm going to be using for the next 8 weeks. I think figuring out the storyline is of the most importance for me in this kind of work. We know the POV. Now we got to figure out how to blend these stories together. So the first thing that I did was just mapping, taking both characters, the monster and our secondary main character whose memories that we're looking through, and looking at their major points. It's difficult because the monster is present tense, talking to us right now as it's going back, or talking to God as it's going back through memories. So it's evaluating memories and coming up with its own stories, figuring out why it's sick, deciding it wants to do its own thing. The monster does not move, and so any progression in its story is all mental, which is very weird. So the first half was figuring out what do those beats look like for a mental forward movement. That was difficult because that feels like there's no forward progression, but there is. And the way to make that feel very forward is how that thematically matches up with secondary character. How similar are they? What happens in the secondary character's memories that brings this character, the monster's movement forward, or their hypothesis forward? So it always has to work like this. So the secondary main character, because it's memories, we have the very straight through line of this was them getting arrested, trying to escape, and getting eaten. But because it's memories, now we need to incorporate this is who they were before all this shit went down. This is who they were an hour before the shit went down. This is who they were before the regime change. You know, there's a lot more pasty stuff that needs to kind of be interwoven in there, which has made it a bit difficult to place where things fall, because I don't want it to be this is A, B, C, D. It needs to kind of be mixed up, and it needs to make sense why this memory is leading into this memory, and this is to this, and this is to this. And while it's supposed to be fragmented, it needs to be it needs to be sturdy enough that it keeps the audience with us. And they do feel the through line, and they do understand how we got from A to B to C. Even if they don't understand it right away, they get to the understanding later. While it's also talking to the monster storyline back and forth and giving them forward movement and helping us see similarities and patterns. So I guess when thinking about the nonlinear storytelling, it's how does the placement of this plot point move story forward? How to move story forward, or how does it build tension, or how does it establish a character pattern that's going to be useful for later, or how does it resolve something? Those are kind of like the 4 things that I'm going to have to be paying attention to, and making sure that each beat fixes that. And the next step would be to look at where it exists in time and seeing how that fits. How does its placement also impact tension? Whatever the 4 things I just said. The placement has to also impact those 4 things just as much as the beat itself. To do that, I've begun to map it out. I think I'm gonna have to use cue cards next. Or note cards next to actually physically move it. You can do it on your computer. I did something and I'll show it, but I think for me it's physical cue cards. But this is like the map that I did. This is my the source called Unity. This is my Unity workbook. I have little tabs because I'm someone that just yaps. Surprise, but I'm someone that just yaps as I'm writing, as I'm kind of figuring things out, and so I tab like, hey, this yap is important, so I can ignore 80% of everything else. But so I wrote out the map first. You can see. So I started off with this side by side. Here are some of the major beats for each character, or just like loose sketches of major beats for each character. Monster, main character. It's like a teacher. I also kind of differentiated. So these are like these are the kind of simply put beats. Before that, I did an internal external kind of beat thing where, not every single beat is going to be forward action externally. Some of it's going to be internally. So making sure that I understood that so far, what I think are going to be those major beats of the character. And then moving on to, okay, let's kind of just write those out simply in that elevator pitch quick way. And then here's where I'm going to need the note cards. This is the map that I'm going to be working on definitely for the next few weeks, I think. I don't know if you can see. I had to film by candlelight because it's 5:30 in the afternoon. Okay, so just a close, I realized you couldn't see in the video. So, okay, here I'm just doing the major beats. This is the secondary main character I told you about, and then this is the monster, Unity. So I'm just writing out major beats for each one. I'm making popcorn. Each of these characters, and then on this side, I'm doing a major beat for Unity. And then before that, I went through, so Unity, all the external moments and twists that need to happen, and obviously all the internal moments and twists that needed to happen. I don't know why I didn't write down pumpkin, but I guess I thought I knew what I was doing. Okay, so yeah, this is like major beats. And then, I mean, these aren't even all the major beats. I don't actually know what the other ones are. But anyways, and then I kind of moved on to like, well, let's just try to weave these things together. And so I'm starting out with Unity the monster. Well, technically it starts back here with the escape, but technically it's Unity the monster first, and then we go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So yes, it's a hot mess. It'll be different. And then I do the same thing here with part 2, where I try a different color and different ciao. But it goes back and forth and back and forth. And that's my attempt in seeing how the beats, how the placement of the beats and how memory can talk back and forth. Because that's really what I'm working with. How can I make these beats talk back and forth in a non-linear story? This is my major thing. I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to do this quite a few because then I'm there's different colors and different patterns, but yeah, the hardest part is that talking back and forth. And there's my mentor said, like, you have to run math on what works for you, and so I need to just see it all. And that's why I think, although there are like online things, like I have Final Draft, but they're saying Scrivener is a good thing that has the note cards. That's free. I think I'm someone that prefers physical because I can't see. My eyesight's really bad, and it's just easier for me to kind of see up close. So I think I'd probably be getting that in the next week or so and just playing around with things. My thing is, I can never lose the reader. I need to hold your hand through all of this. So even if it would feel cool to do this memory versus this memory, it's about making sure that I'm serving the story and keeping my audience member safe as I walk them through this story. So that's all that I have for week 3. It was an emotionally heavy week. But I think it's necessary for me to finish. Sometimes it feels like I think the reason why it feels like I didn't take myself seriously in this project is because, like I said at the very beginning, like all of that stuff prevented me from feeling very grounded and like, no, we're doing this. So even though it was a heavy week, news-wise as well. We had the ICE shooting and murdering in Minnesota. 2 others got shot. Like, it's just like, this was a extremely heavy week coming off of Venezuela. This work was really important, and we keep moving. Next week we start at 8 a.m. sharp, and we'll see where we get to by the end of week 4. Oh my God, week 4. It goes so fast. All right, whatever. Bye.